Can the Panthers play themselves back into NFC South title contention with the win against Tampa Bay? We'll talk about it right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show here on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, where on Wednesdays throughout the entirety of the regular season, I'm right here on the show answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. All you got to do is either at me or DM me over on Twitter to get your questions in for next week's edition of the weekly Wednesday mailbag right here on Locked On Panthers. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. The Panthers are back home for the second week in a row, hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 4:05 Eastern Time at Bank of America Stadium in what is a very important game for Carolina heading into the final 6 weeks of the season, where if they're able to go 9-8, more realistically, possibly 8-9, they go from a team that no one thought after 2 weeks would be competing for the playoffs, and no one thought even after Dalton took over and they started losing again, that Washington game, that they would be right here with a chance. Well, the Falcons have started to lose again because the Falcons are, well, not good, as we all knew heading into the season, as we've all known for years now. That has opened the door for Tampa primarily, but has also kept the door open for New Orleans, who no longer has their head coach, Dennis Allen, who was fired because he lost to these Carolina Panthers 4 weeks ago. And it's opened up the door ever so slightly for a Panthers team that has improved over the last couple of weeks with a quarterback in Bryce Young who's growing in confidence and also growing in leadership as he spoke to the team following that close, hard-fought loss on Sunday against the Chiefs. And J.C. Horn, speaking to the media on Monday, talked about just how important that was for the team to see Bryce grow in that leadership as he's taking over and hopefully going to show to be the true number one, not just number one, but the true franchise quarterback for the Panthers moving forward. So we'll talk more about that a little bit later on, whether that can be a realistic possibility for this team. Let's start off, as we do on Fridays throughout the entirety of the regular season, keys to victory. We got 3 keys that I think the Panthers need to hit on in order to have a chance to win this game on Sunday. Number 1, they got to win the battle of familiarity. As we all know, Dave Canales came from Tampa Bay after spending 1 season as the Bucs play caller, their offensive coordinator, coming over to Carolina. He spent that 1 season under Todd Bowles, who stays there in Tampa as the Bucs DC, not just DC, but as the Bucs head coach. And there's going to be some familiarity there, obviously, as Canales is going to know Bowles' scheme and Bowles is going to know Canales' scheme very well. Who can gain an advantage, if any advantage at all, when it comes to that battle between those two? But also, there are guys on the Bucs roster defensively that have gone up against this defense or this offense. And we go back to what was said back in the offseason during training camp by Servassier Dennis, the Bucs linebacker. He wasn't necessarily the most complimentary about Dave Canales' offense when looking back at it. He said, I love Dave, and now he's at Carolina, but I think with his offense, you can telegraph a lot. You see a lot of things, and football is all concepts. Everybody runs the same thing. But with Liam Cohen, who's a new OC there in Tampa, everything is like it's one play out of 15, 20 different looks. He has a lot of moving parts. He has a lot of eye candy things that get you out of your gaps and your zones and everything there. So he believes that Dave Canales has a far more simple offense than what Liam Cohen is now running there in Tampa, where they're having success. And you look at what Dave Canales did last year in Tampa as their OC, they averaged far fewer yardage per game, 313 yards, than they did the year prior when Byron Leftwich's offense was not great, and they averaged 346.7 yards per play or per game, and they had Tom Brady as their quarterback that season. They also ranked last in the NFL in rushing at 88.8 yards per game. And the Panthers have been much better running the football this season. Chuba Hubbard has been great. I mean, the passing game for Carolina has not been great. I think it's been in large part because of the struggles at the quarterback position. But over the last couple of weeks, we've seen that improve, but it's not improved to the point where they're putting up a ton of yardage as far as passing goes. But still, His offense maybe not as great on paper last season in Tampa, and there's some thoughts from some of the guys there, at least Sebastian Dennis in that building, that his offense wasn't that creative. Doesn't show you the kind of eye candy that Liam Cohen's does, but it was good enough to help them get to the divisional round, to beat Philadelphia in the wild card, to win the division. So clearly, Canales did enough offensively as their play caller for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to have success last year. So I'm curious to see what's he able to do against Todd Bowles on Sunday, and we'll see it a couple of Sundays from now as well, when they face off for the second time this season down there in Tampa Bay. Number two, got to finish in the red zone last week. The Panthers, I think, lost that game because they ended up kicking 4 field goals in the red zone. I didn't really have much of an issue with any of those decisions that Dave Canales made. It's not like he had a bunch of 4th and 2s or 4th and 1s to have to ponder over whether he would go for to kick a field goal. You're sitting in situations where it's 4th and 10, 4th and 8. You're not going to go for it in that scenario. You're going to kick the field goal, and all 4 of those field goals were successful. The Panthers were still able to tie that game with 1:46 left. They just could not get that one final stop again to get the ball back, or at least send it to overtime against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. But had they not gone 2 for 6, go 3 for 6 instead, that's a game the Panthers end up winning, I believe, against Kansas City last week. So they're that close to beating the 2-time Super Bowl defending champion Kansas City Chiefs last week at home. So far this season, the Panthers are 10th in the NFL in red zone scoring percentage. That comes out to touchdowns they score in the red zone, and that's great to hear, because I honestly didn't even know that was where they were ranked heading into this week until looking at it before doing the show. So they've been scoring touchdowns at 58.06% of their red zone trips. The Buccaneers, on the other hand, defensively, they're right there smack dab in the middle of the NFL, 16th in red zone defense, allowing touchdowns on 56.10% of their opponent's trips. So Carolina getting them a little bit more often than Tampa Bay is giving them up, but pretty much right there on par. If they have success in the red zone on Sunday, which you could say that about every single game, that will lead to him to win this game on Sunday against Tampa Bay. So can't go 2 for 6 again in the red zone. Love to get that many red zone opportunities. Just got to cash in on those. And they had done that a couple times this season, primarily against KC last week, against Cincinnati earlier this year. This is a team that is sitting here at 5-6 instead of 3-8. Number 3, and probably one of the most important ones, Bryce Young needs to continue to progress. Dave Canales said earlier this week, as he continues to show us the progress that we're looking for, he continues to earn these moments. Yeah, he'll be in there. That's what I've been most excited about. There's a weekly growth that's happening again. We're just taking it week at a time. I know that's been my language, but he's really taking responsibility of it and pushing us that way. And the bottom line is he's giving us a chance to win in these weeks that he's been playing. So Dave Canales is saying Bryce Young still week-to-week decision, but Bryce is putting them in a position to keep putting them out there. Bryce has put them in a position to have a chance to win these games, especially when you look at the effort they had last week, what they did in Munich, what they did, of course, in New Orleans, winning those games against the Giants and the Saints, respectively. As long as Bryce keeps doing that, Bryce is going to continue to be under center as Panthers starting quarterback in the final 5 games of the season, and we'll see after the year what they decide to do. I read from ESPN, Dan Graziano and Jeremy Fowler always put out some intel that they have heading into each week of the season, and they were saying that the Panthers are still going to just wait out the situation here with Bryce Young the rest of the year and then make a decision after it. So they're not saying that the Panthers are going to keep Bryce Young. They could still see Carolina potentially trading him after this season, but Bryce is going to get 6 more weeks, at least 1 more this week, and I would hope 5 after this, to show that he can be the starter in 2025 and beyond. But that's not a situation that is now set in stone after the last couple of weeks. And it's a situation that we'll have to wait and continue to play out, as Dave Canales is going to still take it week to week, as Bryce has really improved. When you look at these last 4 starts that he's had against Denver, against New Orleans, against the Giants, against the Chiefs, he's completing 61.79% of his passes, averaging 196 yards passing per game, which obviously is not a ton. You don't want to see your quarterback averaging less than 200 yards passing. He's thrown 5 touchdowns, had 3 interceptions. One of them was not on him at all, and he has 0 fumbles lost. And you look at the last 3 weeks, there was, of course, the interception against the Saints. That's really on Leggett. There was no turnovers against the Giants. There were no turnovers last week. He did fumble, but the Panthers were able to recover. He's not put the ball in harm's way for 3 weeks straight, and that's a great sign. Looking at his first 18 starts, he had a 59.35 completion percentage. So he has improved upon that slightly, but still improved. He only averaged 173.4 yards passing per game And that's been a pretty significant uptick, getting to 196 the last couple of weeks. He had 11 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, lost 6 fumbles. Again, taking care of the football, having more success in the pass game, more accuracy in the pass game. Bryce Young has continued to progress and needs to continue to progress on Sunday for Carolina to find a way to win this game. Also got to finish in the red zone and see whether Dave Canales can win the battle of familiarity with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense and, of course, with Todd Bowles, the head coach there and his employer last year in Tampa. The Panthers, with the win, could be climbing their way right back into contention in the NFC South. We'll talk about the realistic opportunity for them to do that if they do beat Tampa on Sunday. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. Football season is back, and the best way to get to games this fall is with Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats. You don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. And going over to Game Time right now is Panthers, 4:05 Eastern Time on Sunday against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tickets are actually not bad. Looking at $28 is the cheapest ticket. And if you use our code, you can save a ton of money if you want to go to the game on Sunday. If you still have family in town after celebrating your Thanksgiving holiday. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Can the Panthers play themselves back into NFC South title contention with the win on Sunday versus Tampa Bay? Possibly, as the Falcons have opened the door wide open for the Bucs to slide in there with a win on Sunday, as I believe Atlanta is going to lose to the Chargers and fall to 6-6, while Tampa, if they get the win against Carolina, they'd be 6-6 tied. And yes, they would have the tiebreaker loss because they lost to the Falcons twice this season. We talked about that yesterday with James Yarko, Locked On Bucs, asking how did you let that happen? The Falcons have a minus point differential. Tampa has the best point differential in the NFC South right now. How do you lose that team twice? An epic game on Thursday, another game I actually don't remember, but whatever. The door's open for Tampa, certainly, if they win this game on Sunday. The Saints, they've been able to find some wins lately after they fired Dennis Allen and have Darren Rizzi now as their head coach, and it's a long shot that he actually gets the full-time job down there in New Orleans. But they sit at 4-7, 2 games back of Atlanta, and in Carolina sits 3 games back of Atlanta with 6 games left to play. So still a long shot, but the door is slightly ajar for the Panthers to step in there and to also find a way into the playoffs. Looking at the remaining schedule, of course, home against Tampa on Sunday, at Philadelphia, who is the class of the NFC East this year. They play the Cowboys at home, who have somehow found a way to win back-to-back games. They beat the Commanders and beat the Giants on Thanksgiving yesterday. They have the Cardinals at home, at Tampa, then at Atlanta to close out the 2024 regular season. 5 of those last 6 games are against opponents in playoff contention. Now, the Bucs are twice. That's one team. It's the Eagles, it's the Cardinals, and it's the Falcons. The only team that's not in playoff contention that Carolina's playing in the final 6 weeks is, well, the Dallas Cowboys. That will be a game here at home where I'm curious how many Cowboy fans are going to show up, knowing that Cooper Rush has helped them win 2 games, certainly, but that's not a team that's going to be a playoff team this year. And we know they always travel. They are a disease that is everywhere in this country, and a team that never wins anything of any amount every single year for like the last 30 years. So not ideal that Carolina has that difficult of a schedule. Looking over at tankathon.com, our favorite website, typically looking at where the draft picks would be, but they also tell you remaining schedule strength for teams in the NFL. The Panthers have the 10th toughest remaining schedule, hence having 5 games against teams that are in playoff contention out of your final 6 games. Tampa, though, they're 30th and remaining strength of schedule the rest of the way in the NFL. The Chargers on the road is their toughest remaining game. I think Sunday will be a tough game for Tampa as well. But looking at a team that's going to be a playoff team, guaranteed, in my opinion, the Los Angeles Chargers, that is the toughest remaining game for Tampa Bay. The Falcons are 25th as far as remaining SOS. They have the Vikings, the Chargers, Commanders, 3 games that I absolutely could see them losing. In 3 games, I honestly think that they're going to lose. And then the Saints sit there 26th with the Packers, Commanders, Rams, and Bucks remaining. And that feels kind of tough, just like Carolina. The Packers, they're sitting there at 9-3. They look great. The Commanders have lost a couple games recently, but that's still going to be a tough out. That still should be a playoff team in the NFC. The Rams are right there fighting for their playoff lives. The Bucs, of course, trying to either get a wild card spot or win the NFC South division title. Carolina does not have much margin for error moving forward if they're going to end up winning this division. And I know I said, all right, beat the Chiefs, beat the Eagles before we really seriously talk about this. It's Black Friday. I mean, I'm going to just come up with something to talk about on a show where I should just be chilling instead of doing this, to be quite honest. Like, whatever. It's let's just talk about it, because what else is there really to say heading into this game on a Friday where everyone's just kind of going holiday shopping, hanging out, relaxing? We'll have the conversation, whatever. So again, Atlanta sitting at 6-5, Tampa's at 5-6, New Orleans at 4-7, Carolina is at 3-8. Realistically, for the Panthers, yes, they need to win on Sunday. They also need to win next Sunday. They need to win the Sunday after that, Sunday after that, Sunday after that, and the Sunday after that. They need to go out there and win out to get to 9-8 to really feel comfortable about their position as division title champions. And hell, maybe that'd be enough for the wild card if they lose any sort of tiebreaker. But you look at that situation, they would beat Tampa twice. So sweep the Bucs. That would give them 8 losses right there, and they still have to play at the Chargers. That could be their 9th loss. So you would already have the tiebreaker over them anyways, but that right there eliminates Tampa. Now, New Orleans, you already split with them. They have games against, again, the Packers, the Rams, the Commanders, the Bucs. I could see New Orleans losing at least 2 more games, really 3. I think they're going to probably be a 7-10 team this season if they're lucky. So they're out of the conversation in that scenario. And in Atlanta, well, you need Atlanta to go out there and to drop another game, if not 2, and they're going to play against the Vikings, the Chargers, the Commanders. They're going to find a way to lose at least 2 of those 3 games, and that would be enough for Carolina in this scenario. But more realistically, if they're going, just not even realistic, they're going to make it, but I don't think they're going to win 6 straight. I don't think the game against Philadelphia is a game they're going to win next Sunday. They could. I think they'll be competitive. I just don't see them coming out on top. So 8-9 is truly the number that Carolina is going to have to reach and hope that they can get the tiebreakers. And that still comes down to, if you sweep Tampa, they got 8 losses right there, and you just need them to lose the Chargers, and you got the tiebreaker over them. And you look at the Saints situation, as I mentioned, they already split with them. I think the Saints are probably going to finish at best 7-10 this year, so wouldn't have to worry about them. Atlanta becomes trickier because you would need to beat Atlanta, and you absolutely would need Atlanta to lose all 3 of those games. I think that they very may well lose against the Vikings, the Chargers, and the Commanders. So simply, either the Panthers win out and they handle it themselves, basically, or they drop one more contest and get a ton of help over the final 5 weeks of the season in order to win the tiebreaker out, or just win a division outright if they sit there at 8-9. So it is certainly a possibility. And I did not think heading to week 13, we'd be having this conversation. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team. I don't think they're going to find a way to make it happen. Would love for that to be the case. It'd be nice to actually sit here and talk about a playoff team for once, as this is my 4th full season covering the team, and haven't been very many bright moments, as we all know, over the last 4 seasons, but they certainly are turning a corner. And if you did not think that after the Giants game, I think you definitely feel that way after the way they played against Kansas City, a team that I don't think that highly of based off of how they played this year. Now, of course, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Chris, you're not going to argue against how good that situation's been. Great, excellent. It has been over the last couple of seasons. But this year, the Chiefs have been fortunate to be sitting here at 10-1 heading into this weekend. But still, Carolina's got an opportunity. Got to take care of business on Sunday. And really the 5 weeks after that, but a win against Tampa and some help. And maybe they're only sitting 2 games back of the division and only 1 game back of Tampa, or maybe even tie with New Orleans at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern time on Sunday afternoon here in Charlotte. So we'll see how it works out, but they could play themselves back in by winning on Sunday first. But of course, needing to win out and then get a little bit of help from their friends, or really not their friends at all, in the NFC South moving forward. Injury report. JT Sanders, Jalen Coker were not expected to play on Sunday, and Dave Canales provide an update on them and a couple other players on Friday. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked on Panthers. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And looking at that page right now, the Panthers holding steady as 5.5-point underdogs at home against Tampa on Sunday, plus 200, money line, and the over-under is sit there at 46.5. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, and every ways to hunch and make every moment more. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Let's take a quick look at the injury report heading into Sunday afternoon as the Panthers face off against the Bucs at home, a vitally important game. Carolina's going to find a way to shock, I guess, the rest of the NFL and come back in here, creep up and win the NFC South. Would likely need to win their final 6 games. There's a possibility with a lot of help that 8 and 9 may get it done, but it all starts on Sunday against Tampa Bay. Got to win that one first before really focusing on the final 5 games after that. Ja'Tavion Sanders, who went out of the game last week, was taken off on the backboard, taken to the hospital with a neck injury, didn't return to the facility later on that Sunday, was in there on Monday as well. Avoided what could have been a significant injury. Obviously, anytime you're taken off on a stretcher and going to the hospital, that could be serious. Unfortunately, we don't see too many of those actually end up being serious injuries in the NFL. A lot of it's precautionary, and that's what it was on Sunday, thankfully. And he is going to miss the game, though, this upcoming Sunday, which I don't think is a surprise to anybody. It would be wilder if he got taken off on a backboard and then came back the next week and played. So for his health and his safety, probably the best thing not for him to play. We'll see what his remaining status will be the last 5 weeks. I would expect that he'll play again at some point in time, considering it does not seem to be that significant of an injury, and they were able to avoid that. So JT Sanders will not play. That will limit Bryce Young's ability to find some guys down the field. Same case with Jalen Coker, who missed last week with a quad injury. He also has been ruled out and will not play on Sunday. Those are 2 guys that were expected to miss time based off of, well, what happened with Sanders last week, but also what Dave Canales said earlier this week about both of them unlikely to play, and that is the case as the injury report came out on Friday. Coker missing a 2nd straight game. It's unfortunate. Was really building a nice rapport there with Bryce, and now it's going to be Adam Thielen, who's back for a 2nd straight game. Xavier Legette having to step up, and then David Moore got a lot from him last week against Kansas City last year with Dave Canales. He spent some time down there in Tampa as a weapon, so would expect to see him, a little bit more of Devin Tompkins, who got a couple of opportunities in that game last Sunday against Tampa, and maybe Tommy Tremble can step up at that tight end position as a pass catcher, but really going to be leaning on Legette, on Thielen, on Moore. And I would think probably Tompkins more than you would see from Tommy Trimble. Sorry to Tommy and all the fans out there. Trimble Hive, my bad. As they try to find a way to have some more success in the passing game moving forward. Guys listed as questionable: Jadeveon Clowney, he's got a knee issue, did not practice on Wednesday and on Thursday. Now, he has not practiced on a Wednesday all season long. That has always been just basically load management for Clowney this year. Did not practice on Thursday, but then was limited on Friday. I'd expect him to play on Sunday, so not really concerned about that. Amari Barna, who also has not played this season, but is dealing with a knee injury after taking his ACL last year, Week 16 against Green Bay in that game at home. He was limited on Wednesday and Thursday, but was a full participant on Friday. Mike Kay, the Charlotte Observer, asked Dave Canales on Friday during his availability about Barna potentially coming back, and that's a decision the Panthers will make on Saturday. And he said that Barno had been out there on special teams all week long and that he looked good, and they had to make the decision. And I think they may make the decision to play him, but we'll see, as that's going to be one of those situations that they figure out on Saturday. Caleb Farley has been limited all week with a shoulder, so that may be one where he's not able to go on Sunday, and he's been a special teams player for Carolina as well, and has gotten some opportunities in the secondary as well on defense. We'll see how that plays out. The Nick Scott, who has been on IR with a hamstring injury, he was limited on Wednesday and Thursday with a full participant on Friday. So Barno and Nick Scott, those are truly the 2 big decisions the Panthers need to make as far as whether they put them on the active roster or not on Saturday, and then have them elevated and ready to go for Sunday's contest against Tampa Bay. So that's where the injury report stands heading into this Week 13 matchup against the Bucs. But that's going to wrap up This edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all, subscribe or follow the show for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter, at Julian Council, where on Wednesdays, throughout the entirety of the regular season, I'm right here answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. But in the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole, as always, and forever keep pounding. And I'll talk to y'all on Sunday evening, following Carolina Panthers victory against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.